The restaurant buzzed with laughter, glasses clinking under the soft glow of chandeliers. At the center table sat a billionaire CEO celebrating another massive deal, his voice loud enough to fill the room. But across the floor a young black waitress carried herself with quiet grace, unnoticed by most until he noticed her. His smirk carried arrogance, his words carried insult. A cruel challenge meant to humiliate her sparked the kind of moment that people never forget. He thought she was beneath him, until she proved she was miles above. What happened next would leave the entire room and his ego in utter silence. Amara Lewis had built her life on hard work and quiet pride. During the day, she studied aviation engineering at a small city college. At night, she waited tables at the upscale rooftop restaurant where wealthy CEOs and politicians came to congratulate themselves. Every shift, she moved between shining tables with poise, never clumsy, never late, and always invisible enough to survive the stares that said, "You don't belong here." But Amara didn't linger on the looks. Her mind was always somewhere higher, literally. Flying had fascinated her since childhood. When she wasn't serving cocktails or calculating tips, she studied helicopter schematics and dreamed of the skies beyond the city lights. Few people knew that beneath the apron, she was already licensed, already certified, already more capable than many of the men she served. To them, she was just another waitress with good posture and polite smiles. To her, this job was temporary, a stepping stone to the cockpit she'd worked years to reach. Yet every night, there was the same reminder, the laughter of those who'd never struggled for validation, the careless arrogance of patrons whose money excused cruelty. Still, Amara believed she could stay professional no matter what. Until that one evening when a powerful CEO, tipsy, loud, and ready to impress his table, decided humiliation was part of the menu. He didn't know who she was. He didn't know what she could do. But in minutes his careless taunt would become a headline, and his arrogance would crash harder than any helicopter could. The sun was beginning to sink behind the skyline, spilling gold through the restaurant's tall glass windows. It was the dinner crowd, the kind filled with crisp suits, champagne toasts, and the soft confidence of people who owned too much. Amara moved seamlessly from table to table, the tray balanced on her hand like an extension of herself. Her smile was practiced but kind, her voice calm even when the laughter around her dripped with condescension. At the corner suite table sat Leonard Hayes, a billionaire CEO known for his private jets, luxury resorts, and a personality as loud as his money. He was surrounded by other executives, faces flushed from pricey whiskey, their jokes getting bolder with every round. To them, the world was a game they'd already won, and Amara, in their minds, was just another background piece, a waitress meant to serve, not to exist beyond her uniform. She felt the shift before the insult arrived. She was refilling water glasses when the tone at that table changed. It wasn't the first time she'd felt it, that electric tension before a storm of mockery. It started with a glance, then a chuckle, and then the question that always carried more venom than humor. "So, sweetheart," one of the men asked, his wedding ring tapping the table, "what's your real job? Don't tell me you plan to do this forever." At first, Amara did what she always did, smiled professionally, gave a polite answer that revealed nothing. But Leonard wasn't satisfied. His ego twitched, hungry for dominance. "Maybe she'll marry up," he said, laughing at his friends. "Or maybe she could work for me. Start at the bottom and see how far she can climb." The table roared. Amara froze for just a moment, a quick breath she disguised as composure. She kept moving, pretending not to hear, until Leonard's voice got louder. "Come on," he said, leaning back. "You ever been on a helicopter, miss? Here's a deal for you. Fly one of mine and I'll marry you myself." Laughter exploded across the table. The sound echoed like fireworks in a room filled with tension and glass. Dishes clinked. Guests turned their heads. For a few seconds, the world spun in slow motion. The billionaire's laughter, the smirks, the whispers, and underneath it all, the cruel assumption that someone who looked like her didn't deserve to dream higher than the floor she worked on. Her tray wobbled slightly in her grip, but she didn't drop it. Not then. She met Leonard's gaze just for a heartbeat and saw the mockery flicker into discomfort. There was steel in her eyes, hidden behind that same quiet composure he had mistaken for servitude. She walked away to the staff corridor, calm and deliberate, but inside her chest, Fury tightened like a fist. In the hallway, she leaned against the wall, her breath shallow. The laughter still echoed from behind the door, replaying like a cruel recording. This wasn't new, not really. She'd learned how to live under other people's ceilings, how to survive in rooms that tried to remind her of her place. But something about tonight was different. Maybe it was how easily the entire table had joined in, or how public it had been, or maybe it was the way the manager at the podium pretended not to notice. Later that evening, as she passed their table again, she overheard snippets of conversation, words about investments, overseas projects, and a charity gala that promised to empower women of color. The hypocrisy hit harder than the earlier laughter. Their money funded her scholarships, their businesses sponsored her classes, and yet in person, they couldn't see her as anything more than entertainment. When the shift ended, Amara changed out of her uniform and into jeans and a bomber jacket, the one her instructor had gifted her after she'd passed her first solo flight. It still carried the faint scent of jet fuel. Outside, the city air was cool, neon lights buzzing like quiet electricity. Her phone buzzed, a message from her flight school mentor reminding her about the scheduled test flight at sunrise. She smiled faintly. That was when she saw it, Leonard Hayes standing by the valet circle waiting for his chauffeur. He hadn't noticed her yet. The diner had gone quiet. Not the kind of quiet that's peaceful, but the kind that crushes your chest. Plates stopped clinking. Forks froze midair. The smell of burnt bacon hung heavy in the air. Everyone was watching. The man stood there, a black veteran in his 70s, his coffee still trembling in the cup. His cap read Vietnam 1969. The patch on his jacket said, "Freedom ain't free." His hands, weathered and strong, had seen war. His silence had seen worse. The bully, a man half his age, tall and loud, with that smug confidence people wear when they think no one will stop them, sneered. "Did you hear me, old man? I said move." The veteran didn't. He simply looked up, calm, controlled, the kind of calm that makes insecure men nervous. But the bully wasn't done proving something, to himself, to his friends, to whatever darkness had been feeding him that day. He reached out and slapped the old man across the face. The sound was sharp enough to slice through the silence. Gasps scattered across the room. A waitress dropped her tray. Somewhere a baby started crying. The veteran didn't move. He blinked once, slowly. The mark on his cheek darkened. He looked smaller somehow, but his eyes burned. For a moment no one spoke. Then someone whispered, "Did he just hit him?" The bully grinned, chest puffed. "Should have known your place," he muttered. Every word landed like another slap. The veteran pushed his chair back. It scraped the floor long and slow. He stood, not in anger, not even in defense. Just stood. His voice was low, steady. "You done?" The bully chuckled. "You gonna do something, old man?" "No," the veteran said. "Not me." The door opened behind them. Cold air swept in, cutting through the diner's heat. A tall figure in a dark coat stepped inside, scanning the room. His presence shifted the air immediately. People straightened without knowing why. The waitress looked up first and whispered, "Oh my God." It was his son, the veteran's son. No one knew his face, but they'd seen him on TV, testifying before Congress, standing beside officials, speaking about national security. Deputy Director, Homeland Security. The name alone carried weight. He saw his father first, the red mark blooming on his cheek. Then his eyes went to the man standing across from him, still smirking, still proud. The silence cracked like glass. "What happened?" His voice cut clean, cold as steel. The waitress stammered, He hit him, sir." The bully's smirk faltered. This is a misunderstanding." The son stepped forward, unbuttoning his coat. His eyes didn't blink. "You hit a United States veteran?" The bully's mouth opened, then closed. Words scrambled. The son didn't raise his voice, didn't touch him. But something in his tone made everyone in the diner step back. "My father fought for this country before you were even a thought in it." The bully swallowed hard. "I didn't know." "That's the problem," the son said, moving closer. "You never know. You see a black man, you see someone to humiliate. You don't see a soldier. You don't see a human being. You just see what you've been taught to see." The bully's friends had gone silent. One of them was already edging toward the door. The son looked at his father. "You okay?" The veteran nodded. His hands trembled slightly. "I've been through worse." The bully stepped back, muttering, "Look, man, I didn't mean—" "Say it louder," the son said. "Say it so the world can hear how you didn't mean to hit a 70-year-old man because his skin made you uncomfortable." Phones were out now. Cameras recording. The bully turned pale. His voice cracked. "Stop filming." The son didn't even look at the phones. "No, let them film. Let them see what cowardice looks like." The veteran reached out then, his palm steady, resting on his son's arm. "Enough," he said quietly. The son froze. That single word carried decades of experience, of dignity, of restraint. The veteran turned to the bully. "You're not my problem, son. You're what my problem fought against." For the first time, the bully couldn't hold his gaze. He looked away. The son's voice softened. "Dad," the veteran shook his head. "How you can't arrest ignorance." The crowd began to murmur. Some were crying. Others stood in stunned silence. The bully's friends slipped out, faces low. The waitress finally moved, her hands shaking as she brought the veteran a fresh cup of coffee. "On the house," she whispered. The old man sat again, lifted his cup. The diner felt smaller now, quieter. The bully stood frozen, realizing too late that the damage wasn't to the veteran's cheek. It was to his own soul, on display for the world to see. The son leaned close and said one last thing, his voice low enough only for the bully to hear. The man's face went white, his jaw trembling. Then the son straightened. "Let's go, Dad." They walked out together, past the stairs, past the phones, past the man who'd thought he was powerful. The door swung shut behind them. Outside, the veteran stopped, breathing in the cold air. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then the son said softly, "I wish I'd been here sooner." His father gave a faint smile. "You came when you were meant to." The son looked back through the diner window. The bully was still standing there, staring at the spot where the veteran had been sitting, like a man realizing too late what respect actually means. The father placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "Now they've seen it," he said quietly. "The truth always shows itself." The screen fades to black, and in that silence, the audience knows something inside that diner just changed forever. Would this be the moment that finally made people see what silence had been hiding for too long? The next morning, the diner looked the same from the outside. Same chipped paint, same neon sign flickering in the window. But inside, something had shifted. The air felt different. People spoke softer. The table where the veteran had sat was empty, but everyone who'd been there the day before couldn't stop replaying it in their minds. The bully never came back. Word spread fast, first around town, then online. The video from that day hit the internet like a storm. Millions watched in silence as an old man absorbed a slap that carried the weight of centuries, and responded not with rage, but with dignity. The comments poured in. Some were filled with outrage, others with shame, a few with tears. "This is what's wrong with us, and he's stronger than I could ever be. My grandfather fought too, and this broke me." The veteran never asked for attention. He'd spent a lifetime being overlooked. But suddenly the world saw him, not as a victim, not as a headline, but as a man who had carried his battles quietly, both in war and in life. Reporters showed up at his door. They wanted interviews, statements, a story they could package and move on from. But he said no. He'd said all he needed to say inside that diner, with silence and self-control. His son, though, couldn't stay quiet. In a press conference days later, standing behind a row of microphones, he spoke not as an official but as a son. "My father's story," he said, "isn't rare. It's just rare that someone caught it on camera." That line hit like thunder. He talked about how his father had worn the uniform, risked his life for a country that still treated him like he didn't belong. How racism doesn't always scream, it whispers. It hides behind polite smiles, behind fear, behind silence. And silence, he said, is what allows it to breathe. People started talking differently after that. Schools used the clip in classrooms. Churches played it during sermons. Online, it became a symbol, not of hate but of resistance without violence, of pain met with grace. As for the veteran, he went back to his routine. Same diner, same seat, but now when he walked in, people stood to greet him. The waitress poured his coffee before he even sat down. She smiled, eyes wet. "Morning, sir." He nodded. "Morning." But deep inside, he knew it wasn't just about respect. It was about reckoning. For once, people saw the line between right and wrong drawn clearly. and they couldn't unsee it. Still, he knew how these moments come and go. The headlines fade, the outrage moves on, the cameras leave, and the silence creeps back in. Yet this time something lingered. Maybe it was the image of that slap. Maybe it was his calm. Or maybe it was the question his son left hanging in the air. How many more times does this have to happen before we change? The veteran didn't want pity. He wanted progress. He wanted a world where no one's father, no one's son, had to prove their worth to be treated like a human being. One evening, weeks later, he sat at the diner again, staring out the window as the sun dipped low. A boy passed by outside, black and young, maybe 12. The kid stopped, saw him, and gave a small salute through the glass. The veteran smiled and returned it. That simple exchange, quiet, pure, was the real victory. Not the viral video, not the outrage, the connection, the recognition. Because change doesn't start in the streets. It starts in the moments when someone decides to see. And maybe that's the point of this story. Not to make you angry, but to make you notice. To make you look twice the next time someone is treated as less than they are. Because racism isn't just history, it's habit. And habits don't break until someone refuses to repeat them. The question is, will we finally stop pretending not to see it? Or will the next story sound exactly the same?